Hello, Nicholas. I'd like to play a game.
Man, that sounded way creepier than you probably wanted it to. Like I'm already locked up in your basement, like duct taped to a mattress or something like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, where we discuss the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. Gerald here with you, of course, and my buddy on the other side. Look at that guy over there, chained up and duct taped to my wall in my garage. Nicholas, how are you?
I feel like we needed like 8 other people on this, and we could have called it like Peas X. Could have been like Peas 10. Like
we should have done that.
Get it in here.
Yeah.
Editing a podcast with 10 people would have also driven Dan insane, so there's that bonus for you, I guess.
Yeah, that would have been the game for him. Sure, why not? So you just got back from the theater on seeing this bad boy. We're reviewing Saw
literally
X.
Did, yeah. Literally just walked out of the theater from having seen this one. So I haven't had as much time to process it as I would like, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Yeah, sometimes that instant reaction speaks volumes, you know. Yeah. So we'll see. I watched most of it this afternoon when my son was at a birthday party. I did the on-demand thing for this one. Mm-hmm. So I had my little 4-year-old running around doing crap and trying to keep him away from where the television was because it was a Saw movie. So that was a whole thing in and of itself. But I did get it in, and I just finished it about an hour ago or so. So I'm excited to talk about this one with you. I know it's a franchise that's near and dear to your heart, too, so we'll dive into that a little bit as well. But before we get to the review of Saw X this week, we start every episode, Nick, with what we call one big question.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
I have a question,
all right, Nick,
too, Gerald.
Hit me with it, man. Hit me with it.
You want to play a game?
I already did that. Mine was like super.
Oh, is that not? Is that could be my? That's my one big question though. Like, do you?
Wow.
Do you want to play? That's not even really a big question. That would be like the worst big question because it's like so open ended. I mean, what do you even do with that? No. So G. Let me. There's an aspect of this movie we're going to discuss when we tear down the spoilers later and get into it. And I'm gonna refer to it right now only as shooting fish in a barrel.
Okay.
And if what group or what person, people, whatever, who has maligned you so badly in your life that you would want to set them up in a Saw style trap? And Dan Brennick cannot be one of your answers.
I was gonna say just one person. His name is Dan, and his address is. No, I love you, Dan. I would not do that. I don't think. This is a tough one because I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter, man. I don't hate anybody. I don't think I've really been maligned. But if I had to answer, okay, because that's what this segment's kind of all about. You're kind of putting me on the spot here. Yep. It's gonna sound really bad, but I would say retail customers.
Wow.
And the restaurant business too. Let's get all those like Karens together. All the I want to see the manager customers that are just like pissed about the most minuscule thing, like they're the only person on the face of the earth, like I don't have anybody else to take care of, and they just take it out on me, or one of my employees or whatever, and it's just the entitlement kind of gets to me. Now, with that being said, it's not that serious. I'm not trying to torture these people, but to answer your question, that was the first thing that came to mind. Do you have an answer for your own question?
He does want to torture him. He's just trying to play coy. He really, really is. So there's a particular thing that I really find gratingly terrible because social media. We talked about this a lot. I don't know, over the past couple episodes of like social media and how like negativity can spread so easily because of like rage bait and things like that. Rage bait content producers, just full stop. Period. Like people that create like those food concoctions where they like wrap a full box of dry spaghetti and ground beef and then like wrap it in bacon and then dump a bunch of milk in with it and put it. This is probably one that I've actually seen. Like, I'm just trying to recall bits of them from memory. But like anybody that's listening to this, you know what this kind of content is the second I'm mentioning it, because it's like they're deliberately making food wrong because they want people to negatively engage with it, to leave the comments, because they're going to get more impressions, more likes, more reactions to the video, which means it's going to get pushed higher in social media algorithms. I hate it. I hate that social media on the whole rewards this type of behavior with like pushing it and promoting it even further. And then like I hate that there are people who like literally they will just continue to push and promote this stuff in some cases. And I mean, like the rage bait food stuff is one thing, like that doesn't really hurt anybody, but there are things out there that are dangerous, like that are on like TikTok and stuff, that they have kids trying, like putting eggs in a microwave. Don't put eggs in your microwave, people. Don't do it. It's bad. They explode. Don't do it. Like there's like literally like things on TikTok and stuff like that like, you know, that people do that are terrible, stupid, bad. Those people, all of them, please hook all of them up in the bathroom. It's behind me here. Get them in
put them in a device.
That toilet right there, that the Saw toilet from the first movie, that one right there. You know,
I to your point though, I hate it when the content that's being created, it's not about the subject matter, and the people doing it don't care about what they're talking about. They only care about baiting people in just to get the click. You know? I mean, it's a shame.
I mean, that there's so many different examples of that on social. I mean, think of like articles, you know, where how many times have you read a misleading tweet, or yeet, I guess, as it is now, thanks Elon. How many times have you read a misleading tweet where you click into the article and it's like, well, that's not what that was about at all.
Right.
But you wanted to incense people by reading a salacious headline, and the more people engage with it, the more those impressions you get, and the more the algorithm pushes it and more people see it.
Well, my one big question is an extremely simple question. All right. But I wonder if your brain is going to start racing with it. So
Karens.
I don't. We already went there. I don't really even know what the question is. So what I'm going to say, without giving away any of the things that happen in this movie, because I don't want to talk about that quite yet, but you know the setup, you know Jigsaw's deal, all right, and you know he sets up these elaborate traps for people that he feel like they've wronged or whatever. I'm just going to say, as one of those victims, could you do it, Nick? That's my question.
Nope.
You're just done. You're just dead.
Yep, I'm just dead.
You're not going to try to saw your own foot off or any of that shit?
No, I couldn't saw my own damn foot off. Like, are you kidding me?
Can't do it.
No, like I abhor pain in like literally all of its forms.
All right,
and
so
fashions.
you're just
like,
dead then.
I'm just dead. Yeah, goodbye. Nice
that's
knowing
it.
you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, could you bake spaghetti with bacon and beef poured on top with milk and?
I would rather saw off my leg. I would rather saw off my leg. That'll do.
Then you'll be sawing legs
off. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was easy. That for me, I think.
No.
Now,
no.
I'm going to say no, but let's be honest. It's one of those things you don't really know, though, because the will to live in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really know what you would do. Like, I mean,
you're not okay. Fair. I'll give that to you.
You start having flashes of your kids or whatever. You know what I mean? Who knows? I mean, I just don't know. I mean, my answer is no, but at the same time, I don't really know.
Yeah,
like, if I was faced with it, we'll see what happens. But hopefully, I never will be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go for one big question this week. And the review, and wow, leading into it, there is a dark territory.
Ooh.
But we're going to be talking about Saw X. Now, Nick, you'll know better than me. This is the 10th film, right? That's actually why they used the title.
Saw 1 through 7. 7 was 3D. 8 was Jigsaw. 9 was Spiral from the Book of Saw. So this one is the 10th Saw film.
So this
Although
is technically
chronologically it takes place between the first and second film. So before... Because it was now spoilers for the Saw franchise. It was before Amanda was revealed, because she was in the first film as a survivor of one of his traps, but she wasn't revealed to be one of his apprentice until the second one, which is kind of funny. Like, there's no universe in which, like, think about like Star Wars, Gerald. Like, a lot of people like to kind of think about watching the Star Wars series chronologically instead of in order of release. Like you watch like 1, 2, Clone Wars 3, Rebels, and you know you don't understand what I'm saying though. Like you couldn't do that in this case because the big twist in part 2 is that she's working with Jigsaw.
Right.
That's like
and
such
each
a
one
huge,
of the movies
important twist in that movie.
Yeah, and each one of the movies individually try to have some kind of like, oh shit moment. And a lot of them work really well, and some of them are kind of like, we'll talk a little bit about the one in this movie, obviously, when we get into the discussion.
Yeah.
All right.
But before we get to... it wouldn't work if you did that, though, with this. You couldn't watch Saw 1, Saw X, because all of a sudden Amanda's going to show up, and you're like, wait, what? Like, it wouldn't work. So it wasn't made with that in mind. So, like, if you're thinking about introducing somebody to the Saw franchise, do not think about, like, I'm going to have them watch Saw 1 and then watch Saw... No, don't do that.
Nope. Just watch them. Honestly, the way they were released, I feel like that's the only thing you can do, really.
Yep.
All right, well, let's do it, man. So before we get into the discussion proper, we give our score up front every week out of 10. Me and Nick have not discussed it with each other in the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not
fair.
It is not fair. Out of 10, Nicholas, count us in, man. Let's do it.
Oh, fine. 1, 2, 3, boom. 6
out
of 10.
7 out of 10 for me. 6 out of 10 from Nicholas. Wow. You know what? By the way, this is the third week in a row I haven't had to even dirty up another page in this notebook.
I just have numbers written down in this notebook.
I'm a consistent.
I just flip to the corresponding page. I don't just write down a new one every week, you know.
I'm a consistent critic, I guess. I just give 7 to everything. It's hard to, except for The Room. The Room I had to write down.
Room's
what
10.
Was that?
The Room is 10.
2?
Yeah, 10.
All right.
So
let me read this. Let me read the synopsis real quick. Let's see. Between the events of Saw and Saw 2, a sick and desperate John Kramer travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental procedure in hopes of a miracle cure for his cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Armed with a newfound purpose, the infamous serial killer returns to his work, and he turns the tables on these con artists using his visceral and ingenious traps.
So this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do, audience. I'm gonna make Gerald give a different synopsis of this movie that doesn't include those plot details, because I only saw like one trailer for this or something like that, maybe. But I read a plot synopsis of this when I was like getting stuff like earlier today before I went to see the movie. It ruins the entire first act setup of this movie if you know even that synopsis going into it, because the whole time I'm just like, when are they going to figure it out? When are they going to figure it out?
It does hurt it because, all right, so this is spoiler free, guys, for a few minutes, okay? And I want to kind of touch on what Nick said there, but we'll keep it spoiler free for the next 5 minutes or so, and we'll let you know when we get into spoilers for Saw X. So I agree with you. It's funny because the first like 30 to 40 minutes of the movie, when we're kind of following John Kramer's cancer battle and his visits with the doctor, and, you know, he has that meeting with other cancer, not survivors, but people with cancer.
It's like a support group, yeah.
A support group, yeah. And then, you know, it's all this different kind of like sentimental stuff that is not in any way reminiscent of any of the Saw franchise.
No.
Like, you wouldn't even really know it was a Saw movie if you'd watched the first half hour, aside from that one, like, you know, flashback thing he has with the eyeball trap.
It's not even a flashback. It's like a daydream that he has or something
like
that.
Don't ruin it.
Literally, it's only in the movie because otherwise the audience would seriously wonder a half an hour into this if they're actually watching a Saw movie. That's literally the only reason that scene's in the movie. Because like when I saw it, I was just like, oh, okay, he's gonna
fast
do
forwarded to
the Saw thing, and now he's got the, and then I'm like, really, like you start. I've got so many different things to say about this movie.
Since we're in the spoiler free part, let me disagree with you in terms of that first half hour, because it's weird for me because I loved it. Like, I thought it was a really emotional connection to John Kramer, and it really humanized him. As this kind of like grotesque Jigsaw character that we had known for the last, 15, 20 years, whenever the first one came out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I was kind of like, what you're saying. Like, I knew all the doctors were lying, and I knew it was fake, and I knew they were scamming him because that's the way the movie was marketed. That's in the trailer. That's in the damn tagline that I just read off IMDb even.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, there's no way you would not know that unless you just didn't, unless you purposely stayed away from all marketing of this movie before you wanted to watch it, which is obviously a hard thing to do for anybody that's on social media or whatever. So I guess what I'm saying is I really, really liked that stuff, and I thought it was different for the franchise, and it was really the only human emotional connection that I'd had to this John Kramer character, and I love Tobin Bell. So I thought he really had a great opportunity to kind of like, I mean, he played that kind of like cancer-stricken person like flawlessly. Like, I mean, he was great, and you really did sympathize with that dude. Even knowing what we know from the other 9 movies, you still sympathize with him in that stuff. But I feel like the marketing did hurt it, though, because like you said, I mean, you knew none of it was authentic. So you just knew we were kind of waiting to get to the traps, basically.
Yeah, and like I really wish that I hadn't known. Like I really wish that I didn't know even that little tiny synopsis bit, because like the whole time you're just like, okay, but when's he gonna figure it out? Like, okay, but when's the big reveal gonna come that none of this is right? So it plays out in its first act like a character study of John Kramer, the human John Kramer, not Jigsaw the character, of what he is dealing with going through this cancer battle. And I don't think that's bad. I don't think it was bad necessarily, but I think that the Saw movie needed to Saw at some point, and I don't know necessarily narratively if all of that entirely worked in its favor. And then there's some other different twists and turns that the movie takes at different intervals that I'm really torn on it. Like, I'm really, really torn on it. Like, as much as like, now this is leagues better than like a Saw 5, Saw 6, Saw 3D. It's way better than those. It's so great to see Tobin Bell back, like doing the full performance all the way through the movie again.
Before we get into the spoilers and stuff with specifics, I mean, I do want to say that I feel like this might be my favorite one since the original. But I also want to say, imagine how much better it would have been than a 7 for me personally if I didn't know any of that stuff. And if I was hit with that plot twist 30 minutes in, like, oh shit, they've been scamming him. You know, when he kind of realizes it is when we realize it. I feel like that would have been so impactful. And you could have just made a trailer with fucking Jigsaw riding a ride on a tricycle, and I mean, people would have horror fans would have loved it. They wouldn't have needed that backstory in the trailer. Do you know what I mean? Like, they still were going to go to the movie, and that would have been one of the infamous Saw plot twists. I feel like, you know, not at the end necessarily, but like, oh my god, like they're scamming John Kramer. Like, holy shit, this is going to end badly for them. And you find out in real time with him. I mean, I don't know, man. It would have been from a 7 to like a 9 for me. Because I feel like I would have just been jaw on the floor if I'd have found that out in real time.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's peel back the spoiler wall, guys, because it's really hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it. We'll get into some of the kills and some of the character stuff that we were talking about with John and some of the other characters in this movie. And obviously Amanda's back. We'll talk a little bit about that. Shawnee Smith, who I love. All right. So going forward, guys, spoilers for Saw X. If you have not seen it, please skip ahead to the end of the episode or come back after you watched it. Nick, I just gave you a bomb drop there that this is my second favorite Saw film. And I'm saying that without really reflecting on, I was telling you before we started recording, I don't really remember probably 3 or 4 of these movies. I saw them, but I'm like, what happened to those? But at first thought, this is probably my second favorite, only to the original. What do you think, man? Where does this kind of sit for you in the franchise? You love this franchise.
I do.
Yeah? What do you think?
This would come, so 1 and 3 are my favorites. Like, I absolutely love 3 because that's kind of when, you know, and this movie actually does some nice kind of things because there's a more hopeful, I think, tone in the relationship between John Kramer and Amanda in this film than obviously in 3, where we know that she has been setting traps that are inescapable and that she's really not kind of maybe what he was looking for all along in terms of an apprentice to do like following on from his legacy or whatever like that. I really, really love 3. I really, really love the emotional journey that both of those characters go on in that film. It's a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. I really, really love 3. 2 is probably after that for me. Okay. This I would put after the original trilogy, the original 3. Okay. 4 I still enjoy fine, but that's when we start getting Costas Mandylor, who of course had to rear his friggin' face in this movie, and I expected it. I do, like he pulls up the phone at one point. He's like, "I need you to find this person, detective," and I'm just like, he's talking to friggin'. And I was like, I knew he was going to show up at some point in it, and of course he did. And then immediately, so the 6 I gave was only for the non-spoiler portion, but now that I can safely talk about the fact that Costas Mandylor is in the movie, I'm giving this a 0. Is he in
it? He's not. It's just his voice, though, right? Or is he actually in it? I can't remember. In it. He makes an appearance?
Yeah. Did you skip the mid-credit scene?
Oh yeah, I did. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, he's in the mid-credit scene.
You can tell. We can talk about it. I have it on demand, and I haven't seen it yet.
It takes place in this bathroom.
Okay.
So you didn't even watch the mid-credit scene? Oh man, should I spoil it for you or not? I don't know if I should spoil it for you.
We can talk about it. I'm gonna watch it. Literally.
So here's the thing.
I could watch it now if you want. I can pull it up on my Prime and watch it.
Well, it doesn't even matter. But like, there's one person left. They got everybody else that was involved in this scam except for one person. Who's the last person that they didn't get that was involved in this scam and getting John suckered into this scam?
I wonder if it's the one I was going to ask you about, which is the black guy in the beginning.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, because I wonder why that didn't come back around. So they addressed that then.
Yeah, they addressed that. Yeah.
Okay.
In this bathroom here. Super spoilers. But there is a mid-credit scene, and yes, Costas Mandylor, Detective Hoffman, comes back for his voice is in it at least at one point earlier in the movie.
That's what I thought you were referring to, and then you were talking about him being in it. Okay, well, I didn't know there was a mid-credit scene. That's crazy.
It's fine. I'm gonna
check it out.
It's fine, but it doesn't really add anything to the mythos. And let me tell you, like, I think spoiler wise, I think I want to jump straight to. I'm glad that there was no future Jigsaw Apprentice twist set up here.
Yeah, you said you were looking forward to that not being a thing, so.
Yeah, I was really worried that like this movie was going to jump back in time chronologically, but it was going to give us the secret Jigsaw Apprentice that still survives to modern day, and like we're going to get 50 more Saw sequels. Mm-hmm. Although there is Carlos. Yeah,
the little boy. Yeah, I was thinking that too.
But with that, like, is that way too tenuous a connection to think that kid would have somehow? Then because he's like 9 years old when John Kramer dies, so
right, but he gave him however many millions of dollars that was,
that is true.
And he definitely probably had a connection to John Kramer and felt a allegiance to him. I feel like,
yeah.
Do you think that Carlos being there at the end? By the way, this is all right. So let's talk a little bit about the kills a little bit before we get there. I guess I texted you after. Fucking hang on, I got the cast list here. Who was it? I want to get the character's name right. Valentina's kill.
Oh yeah,
which is really the first one that we see with the trap with the basically what was basically like power line cables around her head, basically to like slice her, behead her if she didn't complete the task. Yeah. And she had to cut her own leg off.
Yep.
Which she does.
Yep.
But then the blood from her body has to fill up this
bone marrow. It's bone marrow. She's got to fill up
bone marrow.
This
yeah.
thing, yeah.
And it's like a race against the clock, and basically the time runs out before the bone marrow reaches its limit. So it still cuts her head off.
Yep.
Bro, I was watching that like 3-minute sequence. Just like, I mean, this says a lot about me, but I was ear to ear, bro. I was like, this is the greatest shit I've ever seen in a Saw movie. I love that kill so much. And I was like, if this is where we're going in this movie, finally, now that we got all the stuff that we already kind of knew about anyway out of the way, I'm all about it. How did you feel about the kills in this movie, especially compared to some of the other Saw traps?
They were good. I didn't think they were bad by any means. I thought they were still good. Like I said, except for I really disliked that whole eye hose thing in the beginning. Not that the trap was bad. The trap was fine. The trap was perfectly great. Like I really liked it. But the fact that, like I said, its only purpose in the movie is to remind you that you're watching a Saw movie. And don't worry, we're gonna get to the grotesque, like gross out like Saw stuff eventually. But you got to sit here and deal with this like character thing first. Like,
and another thing,
I really hate that was in the movie. I really hated it.
Me too, because that's another failure of the marketing. I mean, the freaking poster has that on it.
Yeah. And that's that's like literally front and center about, I mean, most of the Saw like marketing is just kind of like tenuously to get the number with some kind of body part or whatever in the marketing. I mean, but like, it's like when that's like front and center in your marketing and everything, and it's literally just kind of him fantasizing about like
thinking it,
putting this kid in this trap who was like gonna steal stuff from a patient or something like that. But like I said, its narrative purpose is literally only to just remind the audience that yes, you are watching a Saw movie. No, you didn't walk into some other random medical drama starring Tobin Bell. Just please wait. We're gonna get to the blood. Don't worry.
This isn't an episode of Grey's Anatomy. You're in the right theater.
Literally terrible, absolutely terrible storytelling. Like you do not need that at all. Like I liked agree. Like there's like the one Easter egg of him sketching out the head trap from 3. I believe that's from 3. I think that's that cross thing where it twists the guy's neck around.
But like, then he threw it away.
Yeah, he threw it away. But then it was like that was one of the traps. I'm pretty sure that Amanda came back and like
it is. Yeah, and that was like hers. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the kills were great. I mean, that one I loved.
Yeah, the kills
were just so brutal. It was just so brutal, and it was so like, you know, she did it. Like she cut her leg off. You know what I mean, and then she still died, and by being decapitated, no less.
Yeah.
And this movie with Tobin Bell, with John Kramer, also I felt like because we had that connection in the beginning with him and we were kind of rooting for him, even though he was the killer, obviously. I mean, he was the antagonist. We're pulling for him. And what I thought this movie did really well that I didn't really get a sense from with the other movies is that he really sympathized with some of his victims too. Not the main doctor, the blonde or whatever. Like she was the big bad, I feel like.
Yeah.
But like you could hear him talking to Amanda in private and the looks on his kind of in his mannerisms and in his face, especially with like Gabriella, which was the young girl that he really connected to when he went to get the surgery initially. Like you could kind of tell like he was in a way kind of rooting for them to get out of these traps, you know, like he didn't necessarily want them to die, with the exception of maybe the lead doctor. What's her name, by the way? I keep forgetting her name. Cecilia, right? She was the lead doctor, I think. Peterson, right? Yeah, Peterson.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think that's something that's necessarily not always been true of John Kramer.
No, but it was really has always focused on it.
Well, it was because this was more of like a John Kramer character piece than it was a just, you know, straight up torture, Saw, gore, horror movie. You know, it was much more about like him as a character and like that kind of philosophy. It kind of takes you back to the core philosophy of like the original Saw movie or like the original couple of them, which is like, you know, putting people in these tests and putting people in these things because you want to like enlighten them in a way, like show them, I mean, in his own messed up way anyway, like, you know, guide them to a better life, like, you know, like lead them away from like whatever path they've been on and like, you know, try to improve their life. And I really think that what this movie does a really good job of is showing that like that really is his aim. Like his aim isn't to watch them die in really horrible, grotesque, terrible ways. He really does want to try to redeem people in his own, you know, twisted, sick way.
Sure.
But, you know.
Sure. We what I was going to say earlier, and to kind of lead up to that, I just wanted to ask your opinion on the kills. But what I was going to say is, and I feel like this has also happened in a lot of the other installments as well, but it was really convenient at the end that it all kind of fell through for his plan there with the waterboarding scene. And I was going to ask you if you thought Carlos, the young boy, was meant to be there. Like, do you think John Kramer kind of initiated that somehow, or did that was just happenstance? Or
no, Amanda was supposed to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
it was supposed to be Amanda. I mean, you have to take some things like with a grain of salt when you walk into a Saw movie. Number one, John Kramer's a genius that thinks 25 steps ahead. He's like Batman. You know, like Batman's always got a plan. Batman's always prepared for whatever the villain's going to do, whatever they're going to throw at him, no matter what. And Batman's always got a contingency plan, and he's always worked it out 50 steps ahead. That's John Kramer. That's Jigsaw. Like, so he planned for all of that, but he didn't plan on Carlos showing up, because that's why they said they had that one little scene. It's like, you know, it didn't necessarily work out the way we wanted it to.
Right.
But we still achieved the same end anyway. It was supposed to be he and Amanda, but you know, Carlos showing up was just, you know, it still worked out the same way for him.
So it was supposed to be him and Amanda, and then they were going to go get the money, which was going to set everything else off. Okay. I didn't pick up on that initially, but I guess you're right.
I don't even know what he would have done with the money if Carlos hadn't have been there, because they just packed it up and sent it off of Carlos. I don't even know what they would have done with it. Probably would have just like returned it to the victims or burned it or something. Who knows?
All right. Well, I didn't see the mid-credit scene, but aside from that, I mean, did this movie bridge? I mean, I'm going to have to defer to you, but did it bridge well from like 1 to 2? Like,
see,
this kind of makes sense that it was here. Or?
I was very apprehensive. I've talked about this on the show in the past couple of weeks. I was very apprehensive leading into this movie, trying to ask the question of why do we need this? Why do we need this? What's the narrative purpose of this?
Well, Bell.
And like I said, I really, really expected that they were going to set up another far-flung in the future Jigsaw apprentice or whatever. Although that woman is still alive. Cecilia's still alive. So
yeah,
presumably she's going to end up popping up again in a future Saw movie doing Lord knows what. But I really like... It's so tough, because I think that what the film should have done more of is spent more time. If you were going to bring Amanda back and you were going to focus more attention on the relationship between John and Amanda, I think that should have been its focal point, and it kind of wasn't. It was kind of it. The film has it. On one hand, I loved the character piece setup of John, just seeing him as a frail old man who's got cancer, who's just trying anything that he can to find a way to beat it, to keep fighting, because he's gotten just this terrible prognosis. I loved all that stuff, but it was also unbelievably long. It was this insanely long setup to just get to the Saw movie. Did it need to be as long as it was to actually just get to the Saw movie? And then even after he finds out that it was all a trick, it's like 15-20 minutes of them capturing all the people and going through all of these steps. Why is all this stuff in the movie? Why did it not, when he goes back to the laboratory and finds out that they were really watching what was that, a DVD about medical training or whatever,
brain surgery?
Yeah. When he first finds that out, why does the movie not just immediately cut to all of those people in traps, and then we can have flashbacks to, because that's what think of the first movie, that's what we did in the first movie. We saw them in the traps first, and then we found out how they got them there through little inserts and stuff like that. We didn't have to go through this really long drawn out sequence with all these different people of them getting captured. It's just the Saw movie, it does a lot of things different from a normal Saw movie, which I think is good. But then I think it pushed that envelope too far, and the Saw movie took too long to Saw movie. Does that make sense? I don't know if that necessarily makes sense, but it just took too long to get to where it needed to get to be a Saw movie. And then once it finally got there, I was like, holy God, finally we get to see these people mutilate themselves.
Right. What I've been waiting for all day.
Yeah.
I think, to answer your question, I mean, I don't know, but I think that little middle part in between the character study stuff and the traps was to really introduce Amanda back into the fold, right? Because that's when we got her with the pig mask, and she was the one. Because I actually thought for a second, and by the way, they don't hide Amanda in the trailer either, which was a bummer.
No, I saw her in the trailer.
That could have been another plot twist for Saw fans. that they
If this
could have
was
kept
taking
under
place
wraps.
between Saw 1 and Saw 2, I would have assumed that she was going to be in it. Like,
Well,
even
true,
without
but I
ever
mean, you
seeing
wouldn't
her,
have
I would have
known. Yeah,
expected at least her or, God forbid, Costas Mandalore to show up.
but I did think at one point, like, it's not believable. Like, this guy's dying of cancer. He's frail. He can't. I mean, it's, he had that tedious handshaking stuff, which was all great by Tobin Bell, by the way. I mean, he really nailed
Great
it.
performance.
But
By Tobin Bell.
oh my god, so good. But I mean, I was just like, he can't kidnap all these people. Like, they punch him one time and he's on the ground. So
Gerald, that's the plot of Saw 3. Congratulations.
well, that's true.
The franchise has already addressed this.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, so Amanda was kind of brought back to us in those sequences. I mean, I didn't hate them, but I kind of get what you're saying too, where it's like, I mean, it was literally half the movie before we got to the Saw stuff in the warehouse.
Good. They were really, really good sequences, and I think that it was good to see a Saw movie not be a normal Saw movie. I really, really enjoyed that. It wasn't so much about the elaborate traps. Like, the traps in this, like, if you think about how ridiculously convoluted some of the traps got in some of the later Saw installments, none of them were really that convoluted or complicated here. They were pretty simple, straightforward traps. And I think maybe that's because they were not on their home turf. They were in Mexico. And like, I think that's maybe he didn't have the time to put together elaborate traps or whatever, or it was just kind of a thing that they just threw to, whatever the case may be. But I feel like this didn't go too far. This didn't go to those absolutely ridiculous, insane traps. Like, was it Saw 3D that had like the carousel of all of them, like all the different things? Like, it's like the movies, instead of focusing on the characters and instead of focusing on like John Kramer and like why John Kramer does what John Kramer does and like all those different things, it really, really just got focused on like outdoing the previous trap. And maybe that's why some people watch these movies. That's not why I watch them, but maybe that's why some people watch these movies, because they want to see, ooh, is this trap going to be even better than the last one? Better than the last one? Better than the last one?
I thought they were good, but they were simple.
Yeah,
this movie didn't do that. I thought they were good, but they were simple though. You're right, but like, I like the one with the brain and the mask closed on him, and it had the heat lamps inside the mask. Which essentially burned him alive, I assume.
Yeah.
But that's why I asked you in the one big question, like, could you do it? Because I mean, some of these, I mean, like cutting out your own brain, like, no, I can't. No, I don't want to do that. Especially me. Look at this head, dude. Like, you want me to cut into this thing?
Like, I mean, you could at least like get some sandpaper and like scuff it up so the light doesn't reflect off it so badly.
I just got what do you call the soft thing for my key light, buddy? I try to help you out there a little bit. All right, so Saw X, I dug it. I mean, I really liked it. I know this is going to sound so weird, but I feel like had I not seen any of the marketing materials, and unfortunately that includes even the fucking poster, which of course, how are you going to avoid that? I don't know. But if I had not seen any of that stuff prior to my first viewing of this movie, I feel like it probably would have been my favorite Saw film. Like, I probably would have just been like, oh my God, every 20 minutes. Like, oh my God, that, oh my God, Amanda, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would have just been a lot of revelations that I wouldn't have been expecting for the most part. Whereas because of the way the movie was marketed, I kind of knew all of that stuff. And to your point, I was just kind of waiting to see what the traps were like. And, you know what I mean? If he was going to beat his cancer somehow or like whatever. But the setup was already given to me in a 2-minute trailer. And frankly, the poster kind of sucked because, no pun intended, because I had the eye trap all in my mind. And I'm like, this is going to be the most amazing Saw trap ever. And then we get it, and it's just a quick daydream kind of sequence.
Completely.
That was lame.
So terrible.
The marketing is what, not the movie itself, I don't want to take points away from, but I mean, I kind of am, just because it ruined my enjoyment of it overall.
That trap is great too. Like, I would have loved it if that was an actual trap that somebody had actually been put in, but no, it was just him having a little daydream, because like I said, narratively, it's literally the filmmaker telling you, hey, don't worry, you didn't walk into the wrong theater. We promise this is actually a Saw movie. That's literally its only purpose, and it's pointless. I think it's if you're a fan of this franchise, you got to watch it. Like it's definitely, it is infinitely, and I mean infinitely better than like 5, 6, 7. Probably lump Jigsaw in there as well. I didn't see Spiral. I probably will watch it this season though, before the horror season ends, just to get it in and digest it. Maybe I can do that sometime in the next week and report back on the show next week when we watch Five Nights at Freddy's. But like, I think it like for fans of the franchise, I think you're going to get your whistle wet. I think it's going to give you more of an exploration of John Kramer as a character, which I'm glad to get back to after like endless sequels of Jigsaw Apprentice by proxy, and like John Kramer's been dead for 5 movies, but we're still like trying to set stories of these games that he somehow set up and all this different stuff. And it's just like, oh my God. I really like those aspects of it. But like I said, at the same time, that setup to get to the actual Saw movie portion of the Saw movie is so egregiously long, like so ridiculously long. Like I would have loved, like, even, and I don't even know necessarily how you necessarily even do it, but like, I would have loved just like some kind of something where like he had hope. And then it was like, I mean, you would have had to set it before the first movie, I guess, in order to even do that necessarily. But like just something where it would have been more focused on his journey to try to like cure his cancer, and like, what he gets into like the car, whenever the car crash happens. I can't remember chronologically like a lot of the different, because there's so many different things that have happened in this universe now, so many different little story nuggets. But like, I think it does enough. I definitely think it does enough. I like the final twist. I really, really, really enjoyed that as well. Like, I'm just like thinking to myself, like, I've been watching these movies for too long. So as soon as he gets chained up in his own trap, I'm just like, this isn't the real trap. Like as soon as
There's
that
no
happened,
way he would have let himself, right?
Yeah, I'm like, he's got a backup plan for this. He's Jigsaw. Like he always has a backup plan. He's always ready for this. So like, I knew from the jump, I was just like, I can't. Something's going to happen here. Like something's happening.
Yeah.
It's something's definitely going to come, because you haven't heard Hello Zep yet. You haven't heard that theme that comes up when you get that final twist reveal at the end of the movie. Like when that theme plays, that's when you know it's all turned around.
That's true.
Like I said, like without that, it's not a Saw movie. Like you have to hear Hello Zep. You really, really
I
have
kind
to.
of when they were doing the blood boarding trap and he was in there with Carlos, I did kind of think, okay, well, he's going to be fine. Plus, we know he's going to be fine because of future movies. But,
well, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I'm just like, how's he get out of this? You know? So I kind of with you where I was like, something's going on.
I
here.
knew
like,
something was coming, and I enjoyed it when it got there. I did enjoy it when it got there. I liked that twist, and I
did too.
I like her still being alive potentially, although I don't know to what end, because everybody else associated with John Kramer / Jigsaw is dead. So
yeah, I liked it on one hand that you leave that dangling out there, because let's be honest, there's no way they're not going to make another one of these movies. So
for sure.
You got to leave some people.
These have a
out
budget
there
of like
$6.
$6.
Connect. Right. But I also remember kind of being disappointed because, I mean, she was the big bad, man. She was the one that was really like just vicious. Like, I mean, she was ready to kill that kid Carlos to prove her point.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she was the most abhorrent person in this movie, frankly.
True.
So to see her live from that perspective is kind of a bummer.
Well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about earlier. When I said early in the episode, shooting fish in a barrel. At one point, early in the movie, like after he captures them, these are people that literally, they are cancer patients, terminal cancer patients, that they offer hope to. And it, like, John Kramer has a great point in the movie that like you take away the last thing that these people have, that's hope. You know, like, and you scam them. Like, so on one hand, I'm just like, it's like they may have well just made them Nazis too while they were at it. Like they just like made them like as detestable as they possibly could have in terms of villains. But then like as the movie kind of went on, I'm just kind of like, isn't that a little easy? Like, isn't that a little bit too easy? Like I like some of the other Saw movies because the characters were more morally grayer. They were more complex than just like cartoonish evil bad guy like I said, they may have have marched these guys out in Gestapo uniforms in as full on Nazis. Like they really wanted them to be that cartoonishly over the
Yeah.
top. Not that this kind of thing doesn't even happen, because it does, but like that, it was too easy, too shooting fish in a barrel for me. And I really like my Saw movies to be. Yeah, I like it when it's people that are more like, maybe they've just made a couple of bad decisions or a couple of bad choices,
Mhm.
but they're not overall like completely bad people.
You
Like
want to be able to connect to them in some way.
it puts you when you're watching this movie. The one thing about Saw movies, when I'm watching these movies, I never want to be in a position where I'm rooting for the trap to succeed, where I'm rooting for the person to not get out of the
Okay.
trap and die. Like,
That makes
because
sense.
I want them to, like, in whatever twisted way, watching it like with the John Kramer perspective, I want them to escape, because I want them to find the redemption that he wants them to find, because maybe they're
I
not
get
bad
it.
people and they've just made some kind of mistake or stumble somewhere along the way. Like I said, these are like cartoon bad guys that are like ripping off dying cancer patients. Like, you're watching them in the traps and you're like, good, I hope they all die. Yeah, good. Drain all their blood right out of them. Give me all that bone marrow. I don't want to be that person. And I feel like the movie wants me to be that person watching this movie,
Yeah, I think it
where I'm
did
rooting for the bad guys, where I'm literally rooting for them to literally get obliterated and mutilated and die. And I
Yeah,
don't want the movie to do that.
I think it spoon fed us that,
Yeah.
because it really wanted us to sympathize with Kramer, and the only way we were going to do that is if we just hated these people that he was going after, because he's trying to get. I mean, essentially, this is a revenge movie too. I mean,
It is,
he's
yeah.
out for. I mean, he's out for revenge for what they did to him, and for, like you said, ripping away that last bit of hope that he had. So, think about any revenge movie that you like, where you're following the person that's seeking the revenge or that's taking it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 9 times out of 10 on their side. Like, yeah, kill them, The Bride and Kill Bill. Yeah, kill all of them, Fuck those people, So that's kind of the angle this movie took. The only exception might be like Gabriella, because she seemed a little more innocent. She was the one that was kind of hooked on, I think it was Oxy that she was addicted to.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know. I felt like he had a soft spot for her because he had gotten her the gift that he was going to bring her before he left town. And so she was a little bit like, and she got out of her trap too, by the way. She was the only one that successfully got out of her trap. And then this bitch, Peterson, is the one that ended up killing her and deciding her fate.
Even more over the top mustache twirly.
Yeah, exactly.
Think Susan Sarandon and Blue Beetle levels of, like, maybe not that scenery chewing, but that level of like over the top villainy, where it's just like, okay, like that. Like I said, the early Saw movies, especially, like, maybe they weren't necessarily like terrible bad people or whatever. They've just like, made a couple of bad choices or like whatever.
Well, it
Like-
means a lot when a horror movie, or really any movie, can get the audience to root for the villain and root for the quote unquote hero at different points throughout the movie. And in this movie, you don't really get a chance to do that. You're just with Tobin Bell the whole time.
I think it really wants to give you more sympathy for and more compassion for John Kramer as a character, and I feel like that's the only thing it's interested in doing. Like I said, it not bad. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means, but I was looking when I was grabbing the bathroom photo for my backdrop for the video, and I was seeing like 5-star reviews for this thing, like people rating this like best Saw movie ever, like best horror movie, like, oh my god, like it's so good. I'm just like, no, I think it does a lot of things that I really. Like I said, I mean, I really feel like it could have tightened up the runtime for sure. Gotten Costas Mandalore as far away from it as possible. I know he's alive during this time, but you really didn't. I didn't even need to hear his voice. Like the phone call where he even refers to him as detective, where you don't hear his voice, was almost too far for me. I was just like,
yeah, they did that for you.
They probably
did that for you.
Kevin Groyer was just like, I know there's one guy in particular.
Well, look, we're wrapping up on Saw X. I'll just say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's, I would have to reflect. I would have to rewatch some of the other films because it's been a long time, and like I said, I don't remember the plot lines for a lot of them, to be honest. But I love the first couple movies. And then I really like this one. It's in my top 2 or 3, I think, in the Saw franchise. I just love how they gave us time to spend with John Kramer as a person. I really, really did enjoy that stuff. And that's funny.
It's
me
good.
being the horror guy that's always salivating. I mean, I was really digging that stuff, man. It was cool to kind of, get into his personal kind of space and kind of see the things that he's battling with that, would take us on this journey for many, many years to come. But the marketing for it hurt that experience as well. So it's kind of a conflicting thing for me. But overall, it's a recommend, especially if you're a horror fan and definitely if you're a Saw fan. Yeah. Don't let this one slip by. Check it out, Saw X. Any final thoughts, everybody?
This franchise has done infinitely worse. I guarantee you've seen 4 or 5 worse Saw movies, probably. At the very least, I guarantee you that you'll have it. The only problem is no matter what, with the Saw franchise as a whole, you're still written into the corner of John Kramer's dead. Like, you killed him off in the 3rd movie. He's dead. He's gone.
With a saw.
So the only way you can keep bringing Tobin Bell back is to keep writing these random inserts or to just have random other Jigsaw apprentices show up and then have flashbacks to him training them. And here's why you didn't really hear from them all this time or didn't see them all this time. Like they did with Dr. Gordon in the 7th one. Like all of a sudden you find out he's a secret Jigsaw apprentice after he had to saw off his own foot. Like he's been a secret Jigsaw apprentice, and then they have all those flashbacks to show how he secretly helped behind the scenes to set up these. God, like I'm really glad like this movie passes for me on that fact alone, that it didn't tread that same ground. I really thought we were going to go into this and they were going to establish some new character that was going to very clearly be like the future Jigsaw apprentice for future sequels. I'm glad it didn't do that. Although I'm intrigued to see where they're going to go with the franchise from here. I really am.
Yeah, me as well. All right, guys, there you go. That was our discussion on Saw X. Leading up to Halloween, guys, we've been doing all these horror movie reviews. Last week, we did Totally Killer.
Totally.
Saw X this week.
Gerald's still wrong about Totally Killer, by the way.
You liked Totally Killer better than Saw X, according to your rankings.
I did. That's true.
That out there. I just want to throw that out there.
Here's the thing, though. If I wasn't such a fan, if I wasn't such a fan of the Saw franchise, I probably wouldn't be as hard on this movie as I'm being.
No,
I'd probably be more in line with you, or maybe not an 8. I think 8 would be a little high, but I definitely would be higher. I'm being harsher with it because I love it so much.
I get that.
I want it to be better. I want it to reach the heights of Saw 1 and Saw 3 for me.
All right. Well, 6 from Nick and a 7 from me on Saw X, which I think puts us at a 6.5 cumulatively.
Whoa.
On Saw X. I'm getting good, buddy. I've been taking some Rosetta Stone. Wait a minute. That's not math, is it? What is that? That's Spanish. What's the math ones?
He's been learning how to speak French or something like that.
Yeah. And somehow it helps my math a little bit. But next week, guys, we'll come back and we'll finish up our Halloween episodes, our horror-centric episodes. Coming down the road in a couple weeks, we're going to be doing the new Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. But up first, next week, we'll be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, which Nick is keen to see, which makes me excited.
I'm super excited for it.
I saw... Did you see the Nicolas Cage one that was kind of like that, where he... What was that called? I'm going to look it up while you talk.
Oh, I don't even know. But I saw a new trailer for it when I saw X today.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it only made me a little bit more excited because I feel like we've talked before about how we hope it kind of leans into that over-the-top tone. And judging by the new trailer, I feel like even more comfortable that it's definitely going to do that. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. When we get to the theaters to check it out. I almost caught Saw in the with the digital as well, because I really just ran out of time this weekend, and I was just like, man, am I even going to be able to get to the theater to check this thing out in the theater? But I did have time, so I'm glad I did. Plus, it was like I could spend 20. Well, I was going to buy it, if anything else. It was $20 to rent it, but $25 to buy it. I would have just spent the extra $5, to buy it if that was the case.
I always opt to go to the theater, but I was on kid duty this weekend, like I told you, so I had to watch it.
Why couldn't you take the kids?
I did take my kid to the theater. Ironically, we went to see The Nightmare Before Christmas. They re-released it for the 30th anniversary.
Oh.
But I rented this thing last night, which would have been Saturday night, and I watched it in like 20-minute increments to like finish it because I had to put it on when like my kid was in the shower. I put it on when my kid was at his friend's house. Like I was like watching it when my kids weren't around to complete the viewing. But I would have preferred to have seen it in the theater like you did. The movie I was talking about. Did you ever see Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage? It came out a few years ago.
No.
So that's a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of shtick as well. Like he's the security guard in this like place that has these animatronics, and
I just want so here's what I want the plot of Five Nights at Freddy's to be, and I haven't read anything about it, so I don't know if this is true, but I want the killer robots to have come back to life because of how bad the pizza was at Five Nights at Freddy's or at Freddy's or whatever. Because I mean, obviously
Freddy's
this is meant to be like a parody of Chuck E. Cheese or whatever.
Sure.
And like I remember growing up, we'll talk about this more next week too, I'm sure, but like I remember growing up and having pizza birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese, and that pizza was legendary. Deep dish, covered, absolutely oozing piles of cheese. So good. Like when I became a parent and took my kids to Chuck E. Cheese, that pizza turned into legitimately
cardboard.
You could have eaten a cardboard box and it would have tasted better than that pizza. Like it became god awful terrible. Like think of the worst Little Caesars pizza you've ever had, and then it's worse than that.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Pizza. I want the robots. I hate you. I want the robots to come to life because the pizza's so bad, and that's why they initially came to life. And,
that'd be the best.
And
they want the old recipe. They want the old pizza recipe back.
You know what? You know what? Even better. I want it to basically just be. I know based on Chuck E. Cheese, but I want them to basically just be making like a real life version of the Simpsons episode where like the Itchy and Scratchy animatronics at the theme park come to life. Do they defeat him by taking a photo of him with the photo flash? If that happens in this movie, Gerald, I'll cry in the theater. I promise you, I will sob.
Oh man,
it better happen.
I'm gonna be thinking about you when pizza gets incorporated into the plot somehow. I'll be like, wow,
it already did. I saw Nick in the trailer. In the trailer, I saw a whole bunch of like Freddy's pizza boxes or something like that. So
that's it, man. All right, next week, guys, we will reconvene and we will discuss Five Nights at Freddy's, which will finish our October episodes where we had a run on horror movies here.
No more horror ever. Woo!
And then, I didn't say that, but we're going to come back with Killers of the Flower Moon, which I'm also very excited. I'm going to check that out this week on my day off. 3.5 hours, Nick. Martin Scorsese. Talk about doing it in shifts. I don't know. Maybe I should have done that one in shifts. But we'll be checking that out in a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to all that stuff with you, buddy. No comment section this week, guys. What can I say? Until I can get my 4-year-old to post on social media for me, it just didn't happen today. But we'll return the comment section for you next week so you can drop those questions in there for us. And we will see you next week when we do Five Nights at Freddy's. Nick, get some cardboard pizza in you, and we'll talk about it.
Hello, Gerald. You want to play a game?
Wow, full circle. Full circle, back around.